Hello and welcome to Beyond Borders Briefing, the channel where we bring you the latest news and analysis from around the world. Today, we are going to talk about the escalating conflict between Ukraine and Russia over the disputed territory of Crimea. On Wednesday, September 13th, Ukraine launched a massive missile attack on a Russian shipyard in Sevastopol, the home of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Russia said it intercepted most of the missiles and drones, but confirmed that 2 of its warships were damaged and 24 people were injured. This was the largest and most ambitious strike by Ukraine on the port since the war began in 2014. But why did Ukraine attack Crimea? And what are the implications for the region and the world? Let's find out. Crimea is a peninsula in the Black Sea that has a long and complex history. It was part of the Russian Empire until 1954, when Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev transferred it to Ukraine as a gesture of goodwill. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Crimea became an autonomous republic within independent Ukraine, but retained strong cultural and economic ties with Russia. Many of its residents identify as ethnic Russians and speak Russian as their first language. In 2014, following a popular uprising that ousted pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych, Russia annexed Crimea in a swift and controversial military operation. The move was widely condemned by the international community as a violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution that affirmed Crimea as part of Ukraine and called on all states to refrain from recognizing or supporting Russia's annexation. Since then, Ukraine has been fighting a war with Russian-backed separatists in its eastern regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, known as the Donbass. The conflict has claimed over 14,000 lives and displaced millions of people. A series of peace agreements, known as the Minsk Accords, have been signed to end the hostilities, but they have largely failed to be implemented. The main sticking points are the withdrawal of foreign troops and weapons from the Donbass, the restoration of Ukraine's control over its border with Russia, and the granting of special status to the separatist regions within a united Ukraine. Ukraine has not given up on its claim to Crimea, however. It considers the peninsula as an integral part of its territory that is temporarily occupied by Russia. It has repeatedly called for international pressure and sanctions on Moscow to reverse its annexation. It has also sought to strengthen its military capabilities and cooperation with its Western allies, especially NATO and the United States. In August this year, Ukraine hosted an international summit called the Crimea Platform, which aimed to coordinate efforts to restore Ukraine's sovereignty over Crimea. The summit was attended by representatives from 46 countries and organizations, including U.S. President Joe Biden and NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. The participants issued a joint declaration that reaffirmed their support for Ukraine's territorial integrity and condemned Russia's human rights violations in Crimea. Russia dismissed the summit as a propaganda event that had no legal or political consequences. It accused Ukraine of provoking tensions and violating international law by launching attacks on its territory. It warned that it would respond with all necessary measures to protect its security and interests in Crimea. The missile attack on Sevastopol was seen by many observers as a bold move by Ukraine to demonstrate its resolve and capability to challenge Russia's grip on Crimea. It was also seen as a test of Russia's response and readiness to escalate the conflict. Some analysts speculated that Ukraine may have used British-made Storm Shadow missiles or Ukrainian-made Neptune missiles in the attack. These are long-range cruise missiles that can evade radar detection and hit targets with high precision. The attack also coincided with a visit by British Prime Minister Boris Johnson to Kiev, where he met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and pledged his country's support for Ukraine's sovereignty and security. Johnson said he was deeply concerned by the situation in Crimea and urged both sides to de-escalate and respect international law. The international community has also expressed its alarm over the rising tensions in the region. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting on Wednesday to discuss the crisis. The U.S. State Department said it was closely monitoring the situation and called for restraint and dialogue. The European Union said it was extremely worried by the developments and urged both parties to avoid further escalation. The attack on Sevastopol has raised fears of a wider war between Ukraine and Russia that could draw in other countries and destabilize Europe and beyond. Both sides have accused each other of preparing for a large-scale military confrontation and have mobilized their forces along their borders. The situation remains volatile and unpredictable, with no clear signs of a diplomatic solution in sight. That's all for today's episode of Beyond Borders Briefing. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more news and analysis from around the world.